Okay, one sec. Alright, what's happening, plebs? We out here with Bordam, Brad, Lolly, and Beaky, and today we're going to be discussing the legitimacy of alter reality games tops at premier events. So, I don't have my camera and stuff well set up for these boys, but you know that's good enough. So we're gonna, I guess we'll just jump straight into it. Bordam, do you want to like start us off with the premise?
Oh, well, okay. So everyone has this idea where, like, if you look at like the tops list, right? Like you look at like United Ghosts, and then you look at like Pat Herbin's one, and then like Champ Trade one. It's like, okay, we're gonna count YCS Worlds, and then like WCQ tops, right?
Well, which
That's
WCQs like
well,
are like EUs?
WCQ is WCQ. It's like how you get to Worlds, right? Like
Okay, yeah.
Nationals is Nationals, WCQ Nationals. Like WCQ is in like continental, like
Worlds
European championship,
qualifiers,
shit
basically, like
Yeah.
legit worlds qualifiers, not regionals.
And then you have like Patrick's one where he counts like ARGs, and then you have like all the like the fringe ones in between where like people like 50-50 is just like I'm gonna count this nationals in Europe, but not this nationals in Europe, and like all this dumb shit, right? So my basic idea is, if the event has like enough coverage behind it. So let's say it's like a Konami event that doesn't have like coverage, right? It's still a Konami event. Like you can't really discredit that it's like, oh, this is like a premier top. Like let's say like 1 year randomly, European Championships just doesn't have a coverage team, right? Let's say like Oliver and like PJ and like all those guys, they go, you know what? We're not doing coverage. Okay, so there's no way that you can like say, oh, okay, like I didn't see
Hey, can I get a burrito bowl,
anyone
please?
do well. I don't know what anyone played, and like this isn't a real event. And I think that's like the big issue. It's just like, oh, this isn't like a real event. Like we don't know what people played, and I guess why people wouldn't count like certain nationals and shit, right? But then you have ARGs where there's coverage for like 2 days straight. The deck lists get posted, and then you just get insight from like the people and shit. Like I don't know. I just think as long as like all the information is presented, and like you know what people did, and you saw how people played, it can just be considered a premier event. And that same goes for like complexity card gaming events and shit like that. You can happily just count those too. There's no issue.
Okay, so it seems like your criteria is essentially going to be like coverage as like the kind of crux of it, right?
Like not so much coverage, but like if enough people know what happened at the tournament, then it's good enough, right? So like just the fact that like you can have like 190 person regional, and it can like influence the format in more ways than like a 500 person like YCS event or something, you know, just because like, oh, this deck topped, and now you have like 16 people getting profiled at like a 190 person regional or some shit. Like that's happened before. There's like instances in America where the only event that's happening in like a certain time frame where a format's meant to be dictated is like a regional event, right? And that's sort of the gap that ARG fills. And like just having that where it like sort of just can influence the player base is probably like the biggest thing. And having like that information presented for you is like the biggest thing.
Okay, cool. So Brad, you wanna present your argument?
Yeah. Well, I understand the concept of coverage and stuff. It's what has allowed Yu-Gi-Oh to sort of that and online forums or like dueling network and stuff has allowed the game to develop a lot more. But my issue isn't necessarily with like the coverage, etc. It's more like it's only recently. I don't mean to like discredit anything in like 2009 or 2008 because obviously the game has to have developed, has to have grown, etc. My issue is that, like for example, with ARG, they have the concept of buying buys, which I know they have abolished, or but they have done it. They've done it for a while, and then on top of that, they've also allowed intentional draws. And then combined with the lower player base, you have less rounds. So it's the fact that these guys are using buys on their first 2 rounds. They are winning the next 3, and then they are intentionally drawing the last 2 to get to the top 16 bracket, and that is deemed as a premier top. When guys, in Europe who don't have these ARGs, etc. But I'm not excluding Americans, but I just mean, for example, like they have to go through
like UK
10
Nats.
to 11 rounds. Yeah, like 10 to 11 rounds of Swiss to go 8-3 or 8-2 to potentially make like top cut. I mean, like it's easy at like nationals. That's why most like especially I know for a fact in Britain most players don't count British nationals as a Premier top because the it's quite easy to top because like at UK nationals this year it was like 512 players and like top 64 was a thing, which was ludicrous.
Oh yeah,
So,
no, like the whole nationals like layout is just flawed. And
yeah,
I'm pretty sure that a lot of the people that run it are just like running it incorrectly because our nationals was meant to have like a cut lower than top 64,
yeah,
and it ended up having a top 64 cut with like 300 people, right? And I'm pretty sure there's like a bunch of like other European nationals that just cut to top
yeah.
64 because they're just misinformed. And I've had like guys like Adrian Fox and like whoever else is on like European organized play team just say they're not meant to be run this way, and it should be run this way. And
Yeah.
we're going to make sure that everyone runs it this way. So maybe like nationals will sort of get their prestige back because I'm pretty sure a lot of the nationals, based on their size, should be having a top 8 or top 16 cut. But
Yeah.
anyway, continue.
No, that's like I agree. Was it like I saw on the post on Zodiac that some players were only counting certain nationals, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with that either. It's
Because it's
my
like, where do you
problem
draw the line?
yeah. My thing is like it's because like we don't count an event which appears to be somewhat harder to top, despite being really to us it's quite easy, but like we don't count that event, and then we have players that are counting events that seem like I think like a lot of regionals are harder to top than like ARGs by the standards. The fact that 4 of those rounds you're not even playing 4 of the 7 rounds they're in this event.
But let's be honest, like most regional events, you're not playing 4 of like the 10 rounds that you're playing. It's the same sort of premise,
A lot
like
of
no one's paying $35 to enter. Like it's the same for like YCS Sydney where they give out the playmat, or any like YCS where they give out the playmat. It's entirely likely that like the first 4 rounds you're not gonna either just not have an opponent, or like your opponent's gonna be a total fish. It's just there for the playmat,
Our regionals are, I think they might be a bit different though, because like we pay like say £12 or something, and it's just like between like 7 to 8 rounds, or sometimes it's just 6 rounds if the player base is poor enough. And then after that, then like those who get into top 8 then get a mat. So it's like
like
so,
I think for like European and like I know for Australia as well, like we don't have like a top cut, and you basically just have to like everyone's like working for that like top 8 finish pretty much, right?
yeah, exactly.
Or like they're working for top, they want to get like, because like first place is like 2 boxes or something. I know like Brotherhood and like UK give out like infinite shit, right? But in America it's just like a bunch of just like not very like competitive players can just show up to a regional and be like, okay, well, I'm gonna get some trades in, I'm gonna pay my like $20 or some shit, $15, get my 5 packs, and then maybe I'll spike a top 8.
Yeah,
Maybe.
exactly.
So like American regionals don't get like harder until like the later rounds of the tournament, unless like because like just by like sheer numbers alone, it's just like, well, okay, well, who am I worried about in this event? Well, okay, I'm worried about 10 people, and there's like 500 people here, and I just have to make it past round 7, and I get a free roll into top 8.
Yeah, that's the thing is with like a lot of the European regionals that I know of for a fact. There's just like within these like for these like 7 rounds, you can't like at no point can you like realistically draw or like take a loss or anything like that, because it's surprising how harsh it is regional to like make the top 8 should you take a loss or like 2 losses or something like that. So like it's not that's what I mean when I say like it's potentially easier to top an ARG than it is top like a European regional, on the fact that like you can like intentionally draw and then it'd be fine. I don't know, but my main argument is just that when we talk about Premier Top, I think we use it quite loosely in the fact that we're like compare like if we're slapping the same label on something like that, where it's effectively quite easy to just top one of an ARG, and we're then comparing it to that of a YCS, the standards are completely different. Or it's sorry, But yeah, my point is just that it doesn't seem fair to basically say that these two are of the same standard.
BK, you got anything to input?
Right. Okay. So this is where I've just been
Observing.
hearing what people have been saying, just to get some questions out there. First of all, I want to say to Brad, like, even though we're supposed to be on the same side, you do know that American YCSs have had buys as well. So do you count those
So
YCSs?
does like American WCQ as well. Like they're harder to get. You can't buy them. I mean, maybe you can. Like, I'm pretty sure there's some like VIP qualifiers that you can essentially just enter, and there's 12 people, and now you get 2 buys.
Two buys in 11 rounds, a lot less than 2 buys in 8 rounds.
No,
as
but that's
well.
irrelevant. The whole point was that he said about that if you get buys, it's basically 2 free wins that you don't need to play for.
Yeah, but the difference is you have to earn those buys. You don't like just buy them.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, technically, for most of the time, like at the start of ARGs, you didn't buy the buys. You actually
you couldn't buy like buys. You couldn't use points like from like 2014 till like it was like early like 2015 when they're just like, okay, you know, if you can use the points to buy buys at the 25k, which is like their main purpose is just like, well, these are like accumulative, and then like you're gonna get 2 buys at the ARG 25k, right? But now it's just like, okay, well, you can just use these at like normal events, and everyone sort of liked it at first, and it seemed kind of cool. Like you don't have to like wade through the shit that is the first 2 rounds of a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament.
Yeah.
And like I can understand why people think it's just like, well, you're buying 2 buys. Like it went to the point like when their attendance like started dropping, then it became sort of like silly because like it's 2 buys into like X wins and then like 2 draws in the end, right?
Yeah.
Like,
So
that's fine there. Like if you just want to like top the tournament there, like I think because most people like want to win the event. Like I can understand like it discredits it as like a premier top, but like I think when you like win like the whole of like when you say, oh, this isn't the premier top, it sort of like discredits the winner as well, which is like, oh, maybe like a bit of bias coming from me because like I had 2 buys at like the ARG that I won, but like once you get to top 16, it's like not that easy. Like there's no time, so you can't manipulate like end of match procedure. There's no more buys and there's no more like draws, so you're playing like a regular top card procedure. And that's like probably why Patrick thrives so much, like when they always have them, right? I don't know. I'm half awake. I have a flight to fucking Orlando tomorrow, and I just don't know what's happening.
No, I mean that's I guess there's some merit to that, but like, you know, the point still stands is that they still like those standards are still applicable to those, you know, to the YCSs as well.
So
but there's obviously
you're saying that those YCSs still count or they don't count?
I'm saying that they count.
Okay. Right. Okay. Now, but Bowden, you seem to be a lot more open about everything, which is like quite interesting because it's sort of what I oppose. Like what you're saying, I sort of agree with more than opposed to say United Goes or Hoban's one, where they obviously have like an agenda when they make these sort of ones because they obviously.
I think everything should be counted, and then like you should go from there. Because like you can't like discredit someone's accomplishments because like, oh, like your event was smaller, or like, oh, your event like had this happen, or like this and that. Because then like if you start looking at like every event under a microscope like that, you could probably discredit, you know, like pretty much every event in Yu-Gi-Oh history, right? There's like nothing to it. You can just say this doesn't count because of X reason. Like, well, what's the point?
I want to ask you about if you would count these then, okay? So would you count the Brotherhood Opens as premier events?
Well, like I don't remember. Like I remember those UK Pro ones, like the old ones.
Yeah.
Those ones, I'm pretty sure people would count.
Right.
Brotherhood Opens, I don't like know enough to comment, but I remember UK Pro like back in the day, like that was just that was all over like the forums I'd read, and everyone would like go to it and they test for it. Like I'm pretty sure like Galileo like played there like 1 or 2 years before he like won Worlds and shit. So it's like, definitely like an event that people can go to, and it's like they have to be good.
Gally didn't enter any of the UK pros, but Gruner came over, Rodrigo came over, Merlin came over. But right, so you count UK pros, which was one of the questions, but so you wouldn't count Brotherhood.
Like Brotherhood, I don't know enough about, but like I'm sure if I look into it, then it's on like the same level as like ARG and then like CCG, right?
They get
it's like, well, like I guess we can count that.
The smallest one's been like around 150, and they've all been like, pretty much the majority of them have been streamed on Twitch through Olympio's channel, and then all of them have been uploaded to YouTube.
Well, here's like the better question. If you ask someone in the UK, right, like, oh, do you have, how many tops do you have? And they say, oh, I have 4 tops. And you go, oh, what did you top? And they go, oh, I topped like a Nationals, I topped the Brotherhood Open, I topped a YCS, and I topped Euros, right?
Right.
Like, do you just go, you only top 2 events? You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
you just say, no, you only top 2 events. The YCS and Euros only count.
Right. No, see, the
Like,
thing
there's a line that you have to like draw at. Like when you're in the UK, it's sort of like only count for that. It'll only like encompass that.
Right, no, but that's what I want to see. I want to see where your line is, because
I know what you mean.
you're being broad about it, but then I want to see where your line is to see if it becomes like conflicting.
Yeah, I know. It can like contradict itself. I think you cut out the whole idea of regionals entirely, and then
Right.
when you get to like bigger events, like you don't count a regionals, right? You can like write it down, and be like, oh, my regionals had 1,000 people. It's still a regionals, right? It doesn't really have that to it. And then like when you get to like those like just overexposed events, like ARGs, like complexity card gaming events, like YCS people, like fucking whatever, right? Like even like national, I think nationals you should be able to count, because you know some people can only attend their nationals and then like the YCS in their country. I think those are like fine. Like if it's like a big event in your country, like Chinese nationals that happened like recently is unofficial, and like that's their biggest event. It had like a couple hundred people or some shit, right?
Right,
And it's unofficial. So
that was my next point, because I was going to say that nowadays most of the this is basically a consensus from a lot of people from the UK, but nowadays nationals in like recent nationals, right? Even though they have more attendance than nationals previously, because obviously they're open now.
like
But
if you're qualified for Worlds, it doesn't count, right?
no, no. The thing is, so they don't if you top those events, they don't really don't really count them as tops. But say from back in like 2005, when we have like people like JoJo and Pennicott and people, and obviously like it was a lot like people, they give them nationals a lot more prestige. Would you have the same opinion that back in the day when it was a lot like we had the greats of the UK Yu-Gi-Oh? Would you count?
It took like a point where like, okay, so 2006 like onwards for Europe, where like no one would really like count their nationals. Like if you went like back then, and it's just like I think everyone would count it, but there's just so many events now where it's just like you can't count if you like follow like the method that like everyone else is counting, like United Ghostus and like the champ trade and shit. You can't count 2006 until now for nationals, right? Because that's when Euro started. But before then, if you just follow like everything they've been doing, 2005 like previous, it counts, right? Because everyone went to Worlds in 2005. If you won your nationals, you went to Worlds. That's just how it worked, right? So like that's the issue that keeps getting created. Like you can't like just go back in time and be like, well, we can't count this. Like I understand what you mean. Like would it be more prestigious with like those people? I like it's like sort of like a shot at like the people that play now. Like I can't really argue it. Like maybe if they were playing back then with the information they had now, it would be, you know, like a whole different level. Like maybe James and like JoJo just wouldn't even be close to the players we have now. But you know, who knows?
Oh no, I 100% agree with you. The next one would be Pharaoh Tours.
Oh, Pharaoh Tours is the weird one, because there's like a really hard like way to define what the Pharaoh, like, because there was like the Pharaoh Tour finals, right, and like the Fortune Tour finals, and then they had the Pharaoh Tour stops.
Yeah, the Pharaoh Tour stops.
All those things, yeah. Like
Pharaoh Tour finals.
Okay, good, because some people are confused, and I know United Ghostus had like a bunch of like Pharaoh Tour stops, which weren't the finals. Those were literally regionals. They were regionals for the Pharaoh Tour. There's like coverage that just shows their regionals for the Pharaoh Tour. It's a whole different level. And then you have the finals, which was like I think the first like the biggest event in like Germany of the time, right? It's like 1,000 people or some shit. Yeah. So like you can't count the stops. You can count the Pharaoh Tour final. I think that's perfectly reasonable. That was probably like the coolest thing at the time for Europe, and then like I remember we got it and it was like the coolest thing, and that was the hardest thing to qualify for as well. You couldn't qualify for it in my country unless you won qualifier. You had to win the qualifier.
Really?
You couldn't do anything else. Yeah. So we had a
Wow.
30-person event, but you had to win the qualifier to enter it, which is great. So
Okay. So, but you understand the point I'm making about how, like, it's a bit sketchy when you're going, we should be able to accept everything as a top, and then you're
no.
having.
I do understand that. That like a line has to be drawn, but then I think like
I thought it's a lot easier to just count like
yeah,
Europe.
like when you have to like classify the tops, I think it's the worst thing, right? Because no one will ever agree, and like outside of just going, okay, well we're just gonna go off like Konami official events. If you just want it clear cut, you just go, okay, if we count Konami events, let's count the ones that have been like cataloged online as whatever. Like we have the YCSs, the WCQs, the World Championships, right? And then like if we can date it back like long enough. I know Patrick hasn't uploaded some of like the Pharaoh Tour finals and like the Fortune Tour finals. It's whatever.
It's hard to find the results and stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to find like a lot of the results. Yeah, I know a lot of them just didn't have coverage at all. But like at that point, let's just count those, right? I think that's fine. And then if someone wants to post like the list that like Champ Trade has, where they have all the other tops, and you get to see how players are ranking up compared to those, that's perfectly reasonable too. It lets you see, okay, well, this person played X amount of YCS events, and then he played X amount of ARG events, and then he had this many tops. I think that's fine. I don't think you have to just classify everything as like a premier event or like whatever. You just say, okay, well, this person did this here and there. I don't think anyone's really, because like Worlds is like 26 people. It's harder to qualify for Worlds than it is to play the whole tournament, right? Like maybe I'll be wrong, maybe I'll just eat my words after this weekend, but I think it's like that, right? So once you get to that point, you just want to see how the people are doing. You don't really care like, oh, this person has 12 tops, okay, but like Barrett Keys had like a bunch of tops and he couldn't break past like top 16, and I know he was like pretty pissed about it for a long time. It was like
the final one. This is more of a joke one, which you'll probably you and Lolly will probably be the only ones that really get it. But how about the DCSs and the online events we had on Doors?
Oh, the online events were like they're kind of hard. Like CCG had one like 2 years ago.
They
had like a couple hundred people. That was crazy. I thought that was great. Like I thought it was like, man, we have so many people. Like this is great, but again, sort of has like the same issue. Like I think live events should be like the only ones that sort of count. Because for online events you can still cheat. Like I can just make a second Facebook. I get to play twice. Like oh well.
Right, but
yes,
like
it all works out.
Yeah,
That's true. I think.
and they have
When you look back on it, right? I think it's something that you should like definitely factor in as like Yu-Gi-Oh history. Like, well, this person did this here,
right.
and like I think like that's probably the best way to look at it, because it like if someone goes, I have like 20 tops, right, and then like let's say 2 of them were in within the last 2 years, right, and then the last 18 were like before then. Well, they haven't been doing much, right? If they've been playing the same amount of events, then it doesn't matter. So their amount of Premier tops just don't matter.
Okay.
It's just only like when you look back, like, wow, man, this guy was really good at this time frame. This guy was really good at this point in time, but he's playing now and he's not very good. I guess there's something wrong. Like I don't know. I think it's cool to have like when you have the coverage, you'd be like, okay, well, this guy like topped this like online event. It had a lot of people, and like that's good to look at. But you're not gonna like look in the Hall of Fame and be like, this guy topped. Like that person probably wouldn't even write it. It'd be like, I topped this online event, top 8, 180 people.
My the thing for me was like, because I know like I don't really I do and I don't know the history of the game too well. Like I know that like there's been like stuff like the Pharaohs tour and stuff, and it's like that's pretty hard to like get into because like obviously it's like this like a bunch of qualifications sort of events, etc. But for me, like it sounds like I'm badgering them, but like literally I think the problem has literally sort of whittled itself down to like just being ARG. But it's only been in the last like I think year or 2 years, because like well no I think even just in the last year, because like 2 years ago when say like Burning Abyss, when it was like the rock paper scissors type format, Burning Abyss, Shadol, Clifford, like around then, I thought like they were really good events, like premier events and stuff, and obviously events before that, because you were looking at like 9 rounds, no buys. I don't even know if intentional drawing was a thing, and you were seeing like
IDs have always been a thing for ARG until now. Yeah,
but it's been like you know, it was, you could see that there was a sense of quality to it. I mean, like the same names or like always playing like quality decks and stuff. I don't know, but I think like it's just been lately where things just seem to get a bit easier and easier, and then it was just like, oh, and they're counting as that as a premier top, as a, you know, yeah, that was. I think it's just ARG for me. Like that's literally it.
I understand what you mean. I think it's more so like the floor in the game itself lately, and like there's a whole lot of like other issues as well, because there's people who like can always top 32 or YCS, and then they can't top an ARG, right? And like let's say like this is like before like buys or whatever, or like they just refuse to buy buys. A good example is like Irma, right? Irma could top 32 like any YCS, and I'm pretty sure a lot of his results just came in like playing like a standard deck, and like half of them were like X2s into top 32, right? And then when it came to the first ARG he played, he ended up just like losing. I think he X2'd and like missed out or something, because you can't X2, right? You have to X1 into like, or you have to XO into, you know, 2 draws or whatever. And like it's just like it's like a whole different sort of game in that sort of sense. You can't play the game that you would be playing. And that's why Patrick would always do so well. He'd always build a deck to win the tournament, right? If he'd like just spike that lucky streak, it's just like, well, I'm winning the tournament now. Whereas like Irma would play like a standard deck, and I feel like ARGs would maybe like where you'd thrive more with playing a deck to win the tournament, because most of your matchups in an ARG are probably going to be the decks you expect in Top Cut, compared to playing a YCS where you have to play against, you know, just a sea of just trash for most of the time, right? Like not trash, but just decks that you don't see winning the event, but decks that you have to prepare for nonetheless.
At least in the first couple of rounds, like at least 2
of course,
rounds. Yeah. That's I totally get you. I had something I just forgotten.
Lolly, you still with us? You're live?
Yeah, no, he's posting in the chat, because I posted a copy and paste of the DGZ live thing.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yo, what's up?
Yeah.
Give us your input, man.
Alright, cool. Yeah, I got something to eat in this whole conversation, so that was nice.
You got a burrito, didn't you?
No, I got a burrito bowl, correction.
Alright, I literally heard you ordering.
Burrito ball with the tortilla on the side. Life hacks, man.
It's almost like he's American.
Yeah.
So my history in the game isn't as extensive as, say, like Bowden's, who you know, playing like the Pharaohs tours. Like I don't even know what that is, honestly. I have like no idea.
It was the way that European got their prize cards, basically.
Okay, yeah. I started playing in 2013. So I mean I don't know any of these terms and stuff. But
wow, don't sell yourself short. You played YCS Long Beach, dude.
I know, but like that hardly counts. Like trust me, that hardly counts.
Don't bring up that event. That event still hurts me.
Oh man. So yeah, okay. So the reason why I think ARG do count as a whole, but okay. So I've been on like both sides of the fence. So I don't know if I was like the right person to ask to give my opinion, because really it's so I think I've seen people make the argument like in Magic they divide, like they have a GP top, or if they have a SCG top, which is like the ARG equivalent, they divide them. So if anyone asks, they say, well, I have this many, right? But I think that's kind of stupid, because you might as well just give them your full top amount, right? Think so long about it, because that's just efficient. So you might as well just say like I think they to some degree should be divided, but I still think like it's a top in its own right.
You also have to look at Magic for the fact that when they like play their Pro Tour or their World Championship, they end up putting stats for like the player for the entire season, or like a lifetime stats. It's like, okay, this guy has 70% in like official tournaments, right? Or like for Magic the Gathering, like on their software, or like for the Pro Tour, I remember I was watching the Eldritch Moon one because it's in Sydney. I thought, okay, this is cool. And they're like, this guy won this GP and he topped this Pro Tour. He did this, he did that, he did this, right? And they don't mention like the Star City games, like any of the IQs or just any of like the major events and shit like that. Only because Magic the Gathering seems to like just talk about their players' accomplishments more than Konami does. So instead of putting it to the players to say, well, this is what counts and this doesn't, Magic just goes, okay, well, this counts. This is what we consider to be relevant in terms of like premier event tops or like caches and shit like that. And I think that's
something
like
I
the
heard.
biggest factor.
Yeah, something I heard from Rupert Bojangles that he shout out to him. He said that like a lot of players, big name Magic players, really kind of like it's almost so like in Yu-Gi-Oh we have a lot of like big name US players, and that's another thing too. I can't really speak for like the overseas scene like you can, like you're aware like the Brotherhood Opens and stuff like that. I don't know what that is either. But that's because I'm an ignorant American. So like I really just I just have no idea. But like in the US, a lot of like the players, like especially the bigger players, are like, yeah, ARGs count as tops. A lot of the players in the US who disagree with that are players who generally don't play any, or like actively at least, and that's just a common trend. But it's funny because in Magic, for their equivalent, all the big name players just refute it. Or most of them apparently look down upon it, as my source dictates. However, I think in Yu-Gi-Oh, like I don't know, a top's a top, and I think it got kind of convoluted with the buy. And I think ARG realized that, like with their attendance increasing as well as the number of rounds dropping, and so you'd have these buys that you could buy. Playing like, okay, so the joke is buy 2 buys, win 3, draw 2, premier event top, and that's like a joke. That's obscene. Playing 3 rounds to top an event. That's like saying that's like counting OTS qual. So I think that's kind of crazy. But I think like you can't count like the bigger ARGs where there have been like ARGs, 300 player ARGs. Playing all solid players, and then you move on to like you say right, but like if you go to a YCS, oh man, I can think back to YCS San Mateo, the one Merlin won, the one that all the Europeans glorify, right? And I played 9 rounds. I went undefeated day 1. That was because I played 9 rounds of 8 rounds of idiots and 1 mirror match, and it was like a ravine ruler format, right? So
Dude,
I played.
You sucked back then. It was crazy.
Yeah, I played 9 dummies, and then I played 8 dummies, and then 1 real duel. Like I spiked to win. So I mean, like it was. I mean, no.
We keep losing you, Alex. You've got like some connection issues.
Yeah, thank God. I thought it was me.
Yeah,
I thought I made fun of him that he hurt himself.
Oh yeah, no. Okay, so yeah, no. I'm on a Sprint Connect, so it's bad. It's all bad.
Right.
Maybe I can give more insight when I get home, which wouldn't be too long. Which is why I was just, I was hoping to get home before I would have to speak necessarily, because I knew my response would be really long. Really just kind of. Well, what's the word? What does Danny use? Heavy? Yeah, heavy. It's heavy.
Heavy days, man.
I think we got the gist of it anyway, and we'll probably still be around when you like get home anyway. I think everyone's pretty much got their points across, I suppose. I mean, the general like gist of the argument seems to be like, well, everything like can be subjectively considered a top. Like some ARGs were shit, some ARGs were really good.
You would still consider a top. Yeah, because like you have to understand that like and
rest in pepperoni.
Yeah, we keep losing you, Alex. Sorry.
ARGs were tops to be 400 players, and now it's like buy 2, win 3, draw 2. Like that's ridiculous. So it's like I can't really count them as tops, but you can't discredit the old ones either, just based on the fact the later tournaments just low.
Yeah.
So
you gotta take the good with the bad.
yeah.
What happens
So
when
like
YCS events drop to like 200 people, right? Now what? Like you still count a YCS in like Costa Rica or some country in like South or Central America that has like 200 people. Like what now?
yeah, YCS Honolulu had like less than 200.
That was a shonen jump, and shut your mouth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, are we gonna like discredit that? Like,
The argument,
there.
the argument can be flipped. Do you know, like how Bordam was saying, if we take certain statistics into account, then we sort of like discredit winners from older events. It's the same principle, really. I mean, if you flip it, like these guys that are winning these events that have gone through the buy 2, win 3, draw 2 Premier Top formats. They won these events. I mean, it could effectively discredit those who have actually played in the same event, but with a less lenient format.
It sucks, dude. Your players are just savages.
I won on locals once.
yeah, to be fair, like
Don't believe you.
I don't really know like a fair what was like the last fair format we had. I don't know. Like we I feel like we haven't had like a really lenient format in a while. So,
Giga format.
that I wouldn't call that lenient.
Yeah. Disgusting.
What I mean is just in terms of like tournament structure, because like I can't remember what the last event was where buys weren't a thing, or et cetera, et cetera. Because like since then, I think it's been like this sort of decline, isn't it? Really, since they started introducing stuff like buys, it's been in a sense of decline, really.
By gig year format, do you mean the couple of weeks before Soul Charge came out? Or do you mean the actual Soul Charge?
Yeah. You can say it was
that
Soul Charge too. I think that whole format was just like pretty decent. Everyone just seemed to be like doing things.
But that was more
That
because
was still a dragon form.
if we're going
You could
into
do whatever you wanted.
I mean, like, if we're going into it, that's probably because every deck pretty much sucked.
Yeah, but like every deck sucked, but like every deck was good. You know what I mean? Whereas like
Especially
the
dragons.
decks now just suck.
Yeah, they just suck.
They suck, but like you have to find the one that sucks less than the rest of the other decks. Like you're doing unfair. Like we're spoiled, right? Back then it's just like holy shit, I get to do all these cool things now with my deck that was really fair and like all this shit. And then like Burning Abyss came out and like Shadow came out and then like Necroz came out and like Necroz like tipped the scale and now it's just like, well, I have to play like real Yu-Gi-Oh now and you just can't. Like the game just doesn't seem like that. So I don't know.
Amen. Fucking amen. Yeah, man. Like, I guess I'm probably more edgy about this whole thing about the Premier thing. I mean, like I can top nationals or Euros and shit, but I can't fucking top a regional. I think I've scrubbed out like I think like last season. I mean, I'll probably be a bit biased and blame the format, but like I've scrubbed out like 5 regionals last season or something. It was.
Oh, I can't top an Australian YCS, but I've won an ARG and topped an American YCS. So there's a whole lot. I know the shit you have to go through. Sometimes you just can't. You can't do well at certain events. It's just you.
Yeah, I just get rinsed for it every time. Like every time a regional comes up, people they don't invite me to go to a regional anymore. And I'll say like, why wasn't I, asked if I want to take a seat in the car? And they go, because we know you fucking like scrub or some shit. It's fucking harsh. But like, I just remember something Lolly was saying about the Magic players, like, or no, the Yu-Gi-Oh players, where the ones that count, certain events, like certain ARG events, and then certain players who discredit them are players who don't play, etc., etc. Surely that's just like a case of bias, really, and it's again then a case of it's just the fact that then this subject matter is then subjective to those players. Do you know what I mean? So like, if I asked, like for example, Blair Hunter, who's probably had like three YCS tops, I think, not YCS tops, 3 like ARG tops in the last like 3 months or something with like Cosmo or some shit like that. If I asked him if he thought that his tops are Premier tops, he'd probably say yes. He, because like I don't know, there could be a sense of bias. I'm not saying that he would, I'm not like I don't know him, but yeah, again, it's just a matter of bias, really. So,
I mean, everyone who seems to think that an ARG top is a Premier top happens to have a lot of ARG tops,
Correct.
And
Correct.
people who think that they're not real tops doesn't have any of those tops. So,
but like I've mentioned before that like I would have, if watching like 2014, the formats that they were just discussing, like Soul Charge and stuff, where Sylvans was a deck and the decks like Bujin and stuff, or Mermail, like before World
Dragon was the best
2014. Oh man, I wish I played Sylvans. But what's it? Back then, like if someone told me that's a Premier top, I would have genuinely believed it. I would think, I still do. I still think like up to a point, because of like how quality it seemed. Like I would think, fuck yeah, this is like a Premier top, surely. I mean, like look at all the players that it brings in. Look at the level of competition we're seeing here. But now it just seems like they're bending over backwards, and it almost like sort of glorifies players to an extent. It gives these players a chance to just say like, oh yeah, I'm X. I've got like these all these tops, but like the circumstances are just, it's just not that hard anymore. So that's like literally my only problem.
I think one thing you mentioned earlier
The struggle.
the struggle with Alex's
and
internet.
Chambreak had and his
Beep beep boop. The robot.
That was
Sounds
next.
like auto-tune.
oh no, is it so bad?
I still don't know why you're on Sprint. Holy shit! like I got my SIM card. Like when I went to the airport. Like every time I go, I get a SIM card, right? And my connection is better than my internet at home in Australia. And I just don't cut out. I can watch anything I want. It's the best thing in the universe. He's just
not
dying.
like this.
Wait, do you pay the $90 for the SIM card for the week?
Oh, I got it for SIM card for the month. It was the shit.
Wait, how much
I
is it
love
a
it.
month? Because I was getting charged like 90 for a week.
It was 90 for a month for me. Like unlimited T-Mobile something. It was
Wow,
great.
I'm savaged.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Really just
So
doesn't count.
I think I'm gonna wrap up this
Let me
thing
get mine at the
for
end,
now.
though.
And I guess this will do it for the YouTube segment. So unless you guys have any like really important closing statements, or have a hold your peace, I think we had a good discussion.
Yeah, I do.
Watch me when I go to Worlds. Wow.
Check out my mixtape main coming out later this year.
Check out Lolly's SoundCloud. I'll leave that shit in the description.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Brady Bunch.
Shout out to Brady Bunch. Follow me on Snapchat. What is DGD? I post updates on my album almost bi-weekly. Check it out.
I guess I would just say, like, I guess in summary or in conclusion, that this is really just a subjective matter. So yeah, but good luck, World Bordam. I would think I'll be watching.
I hope everyone's watching. I hope I get a feature match round 1. That way I can lose and just be comfortable because at least I got a feature match. So.
A World's feature. All right, YouTube.
Exactly.
Thanks for watching, and yeah, peace out. If you're on the stream, you can see this later if you missed anything, and we'll just continue doing whatever we are doing now. So thank you.
Biden.